What's up, Zach here? And today I've got the Head Motion Pro Pickleball. And these things are kind of like the tale of two shoes. They play completely different, kind of depending on how you set them up. But one thing is for certain, yes, these are marketed as a pickleball shoe, but they are absolute beasts as well on a tennis court. So let me show you why. And thanks to Dan Gal for getting me a pair of these shoes sent over. He is a pro that I know very well. Actually beat me in the last tennis match I ever played collegiately, so that's an interesting one, but thank you to him for getting me a pair of these to check out. Now, you know, like I said, the Motion Pro, they say pickleball all over, especially the uppers of them, but even in the uppers of these shoes, you can tell where, in terms of their tennis prowess, they are just, like I said, absolutely crazy. Now, number one, this is a booty liner or, you know, a slipper tongue type construct, but it actually is decently padded along the lace line. Plus, the lace lines, they're a combination of integrated lace eyelets as well as some outrigger lace eyelets. Those outrigger lace eyelets are right over the apex of your arch, your dorsal arch, so they lay down a little bit easier on the foot, so really not a lot of irritation there. You also get a pretty far posterior runner's knot on these. I found that this shoe played like two different shoes if you had the runner's knot in them versus just using the standard eyelet. If you're using a standard eyelet, a little more flexible of a shoe, you could really evert them a little bit, almost like an Adidas Ubersonic fit, but as soon as you use the runner's knot in them, man, the playability of them became so much more aggressive. So if it's me, I'm using the runner's knot eyelet on them and then maybe putting a little piece of adhesive moleskin or something right under the most proximal portion of that slipper tongue up there, just to protect against any neuritis or any nerve irritation of those laces. And then at that point, these things really become a beast of a lockdown shoe, as well as they kind of bring a lot more of the upper over for a lot more kind of rugged play, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, as you go further down the lace line, number one, like I said, it is a slipper tongue shoe, but the netting in here is so porous, and then the outer layer of the upper just has these macro pores going through that TPU and textile outer layer, so there is a ton of breathability in the uppers, and we all know about the breathability in the mid and outsole of this shoe, where it has the breathing cage on the bottom. You look at this thing on the breathability test, only heated up 98.7 degrees, and this is for a shoe that's got a slipper tongue liner in it, as well as a really aggressive outer layer of the uppers, as well as a crazy drag guard, which pretty much goes from the junction of your mid and forefoot all the way around the toe cap to the lateral side. I mean, to me, that is the best feat of engineering of this shoe, is the fact that these things can keep you that cool, the fact that they have that much fog egress. You can see on the breathability mapping, fog's getting out of the bottom of the shoe just as much as it's getting out of the top of the shoe. That's the same for moisture, right? So you are going to be able just to breathe through these so exceptionally well. And like I said, you've got all this rugged, you know, double layer wrapping over the top of it, which is very, very thick and strong material. I mean, when I first took them out, and I took them out of the box, I'm like, oh, you know, okay. And then I put my hand on this stuff, and it is thick, tough material on this outer wrap. So really, I mean, this is just really the perfect combination of really aggressive uppers mixed with a ton of breathability. Look at this thing on the upper durability test. Speaking of 10 seconds high grit sandpaper, I mean, it basically just scuffs up the drag guard, which is fantastic. And then in terms of heel slippage, as long as you're using that runner's knot in these, the heel slippage is really zero. You have a ton of padding around the ankle collar of these shoes. The heel counter was actually pretty difficult to get through too. That's a pretty stiff heel counter. And a lot of times you do need that with a slipper tongue type shoe, because it can introduce a little bit of instability there. But with these ones, like I said, because the outer layer of these was so aggressive, there really was no issue. Now, the midsole teardown on the Motion Pros was a lot of fun. It is a near full bed of Head's Dynafoam. Now, this appears on the microscope to be just a pretty open, porous thermoplastic foam. Now, I've looked up what Dynafoam is on a lot of different areas, and Dynafoam, I'm not sure if there's just a lot of companies that make something called Dynafoam, but all of them, you know, talk about its thermoplastic capabilities. In this one, you can just see the naked eye just how porous these things are. These, you know, the cells of this foam are so big. Now, if you look at the shank on these things, it is, you know, ridiculously thick. It has to be because, you know, you've got perforations through it, right? You got that cage under it that's allowing airflow. But on top of that, you just have some EVA foam that's protecting your arch from that cage. You really can't put that Dynafoam on top of it because I don't think it's structurally sound enough to cut through it as much. I think your arch would end up hitting the shank. I think that's why they probably did that, just get a little bit more durability under the meatiest part of your foot. Interesting thing is, if you look at this setup on the bounce height test, only got 30 centimeters in the rear foot, 29 in the forefoot. That's what we're used to seeing with just more standard kind of EVA foams. What I noticed, and what I also noticed on court is that these feel incredibly bottom light for how thick the rubber is on these. The rubber thickness, the durometer, which we'll talk about in a second, it's incredible. I mean, it is hulking rubber, but the foam in it is so light that it kind of evens it out, so it still feels really bottom light underfoot. The thing is I noticed that this foam, to me, it's much more meant for shock absorption. And we're not used to seeing that with thermoplastics. Usually though, especially in the basketball space, they're meant to try to bounce to the moon, right? They want you feeling super bouncy underfoot. This one, like I said, super open pores of air, right? I mean, these pockets of air are enormous. It's, like I said, to me, it's much more meant for your foot to be able to compress this. Now, in terms of durability over time, yeah, I mean, the shank is going to protect it. It's a decent slab of foam in there. To me, an orthotic in this will definitely increase the length of, will definitely increase the durability of this foam, increase the length that this foam will do what it says. To me, this foam will probably start to compress over time. So if you're a lighter player, this midsole is going to play a lot lighter and a lot more feathery for longer. If you're a heavier player, honestly, it's going to be the midsole that probably goes before the outsole. Like I said, we'll talk about that in a second. Like I said, getting into the outsole tread, you've got this honeycombing pattern where in the central portion of the shoe, it's open on the inside, and then on the periphery of the shoe, it's closed in rubber, right? It's solid. Now, what I noticed on this is, number one, on the grip test ramp, slips at 36 degrees, which is not as, tacky as some other rubbers we've seen. On the viewing box, there's really no rubber movement whatsoever. The durometer on these things is off the charts, right? This is hard, durable rubber meant for sliding. What I noticed is these shoes are sliding first shoes. I mean, for sure. I do not slide very well. Even in my prime, I wasn't a huge slider. I was much more confident taking the extra few steps, pivoting and hitting. That's just how I learned how to play, and that's just what I was comfortable with. I even noticed with me, I could slide ridiculously easy in these. At times I was thinking to myself, like, you better settle down because you might hurt yourself. But what I noticed is yeah, they slide easily, but they also pick up traction when you want them to as well. Some shoes, they slide really easily. It's like, trying to, get up on an ice skate, right? Trying to get back up. Whereas in these, it's slide, pivot, and go. If you notice on court, I think I showed some pictures. I was actually laying down some tread on these. I think I showed some pictures on court. These things were leaving their mark on court. So, these things like to slide. And it's interesting because the Head Sprint Pro also, same thing. It's a slide first shoe and it feels incredibly easy to slide in them. These ones feel a lot like the Sprint Pro, only better in almost every way. So if you're looking for more of an ease of sliding type shoe for hard courts, but you want more of the trappings of more of a maximalist shoe, yeah, I mean, and you're not really wanting the Sprint Pro, then yeah, these are a perfect complement to that kind of game. And speaking of that, you look at the speed ratio, comes in at a 1.95, shank score of 0.3, brings it up to a 2.25. I think I don't know if it's underselling it or not, because like I said, it's not that they are producing a lot of pop or producing a lot of speed, but they allow you to pick up a lot of speed. They're so bottom light feeling, like I said, even for that rubber, that you feel like there's just nothing underneath of you. So, and then like I said, they allow energy dissipation so well. So you can get up to a pretty fast pace and then be able to kind of slide into your shot and kind of dissipate that shock, right, through the rubber or the shoe. So they're fast in that they allow you to be fast. Like I said, though, in terms of pop and them giving you a lot back, like I said, that's set up to me a little bit more for shock absorption and comfort. But getting into the fit of the Motion Pro, this is probably my favorite part of them. These things only had a 7-degree inflare, a metatarsal width of 9.6 centimeters, a toe box width of 10.5 centimeters, and a toe box taper of only 9 degrees. Now, if you look at them, they do look like just pretty straight up and down shoes. It's just that they're so forgiving in so many ways. And like I said, you can lock them down so well that they don't feel like you're just sliding around in them. Like I said, the toe box taper to me isn't the biggest deal in the world. I know a lot of people really want to have more room in the toe box themselves. In terms of court sports, I think pickleball versus tennis, that might be just a hair more important because more short court movements need a little bit more tactile feel. So, do you want to be able to lay down your big toe a little bit more, feel the ground a little bit, versus in tennis, like do you want your metatarsal heads to be able to stack and be able to run faster, longer distances faster? There's a little bit of a difference there. Like I said, what I noticed is yeah, these aren't as streamlined as something like, let's say, the Sprint Pro is, but because they're so, bottom light, you can get away with it as well as get that comfort of that super forgiving kind of, frame of these shoes. So a narrow and medium foot, honestly, if you're really narrow, you might want to consider going down a half size on these as long as you don't have super long toes. And then you'll get a little bit more of a performance fit, get that weight reduction on them, a little bit more of a lockdown. You won't have to crank the runners not as high. Medium and a 2E foot, and these go true to size. A 4E, honestly, if you can get in the entry of them, I think you can probably just go true to size on these. If not, just go up one half size. I think either or, I think you're going to win because if you go true and be able to break it in, you get the weight reduction. If you go up a little bit, you'll have a little bit more room, a little bit more comfort. In terms of the snake bitten foot, while they are new, they're fantastic, all right? The shock absorption, the shock dissipation of them is really nice. Plus, they're so stable, you're not getting any of that micro motion in there and introduce all those kind of, pains like with Achilles tendonitis or plantar fasciitis. The thing though is, I just think once they get older, that foam compresses. That's when I think they're going to lose that really nice plush, pillowy, shock absorbing feel of them. Because it's just going to start to get a little more dense underfoot. So I think, honestly, put an orthotic in these, especially if you can get a more low profile orthotic in them. I think that that's going to kind of more evenly distribute the weight along the foot better than them, and I think that's going to give you a much more long-term solution to these. You can put bulky orthotics in these, that's fine, but would that ruin the best parts of these shoes? Because like I said, that bottom light feeling. If you don't care about that, then yeah, throw any orthotic you want in them, throw the bulkiest custom orthotic you want in them. But like I said, while they're new on their own, fantastic. Over the long term, an orthotic will solve a lot of issues. And getting into the performance of these, like I said, they play like two different shoes depending on how you lock them down. If you don't use the runner's knot and you're not using that outer really, substantial parts of the shoe, honestly, that they can feel a little bit too forgiving in the ankle collar. You get a lot of freedom. If you're someone that likes that, amen. Go for it. You're going to love it. Someone like me, though, as soon as I was able to lock down a little more of those uppers around my ankle, could feel just a little bit more of that confidence, a little more of that proprioception. These things were just absolute beasts. I just loved being able to kind of get out of my own way for inside-out forehands, quick movements on these. Like I said, you can grab traction if you need to on them. You can slide if you want to, too. They just kind of glide along the court so effortlessly. That bottom light feeling is just so great. And like I said, I really am going to be interested in maybe a longer term review of these. I'll get, Dan gave me a few pairs of these, so I might give them to some people that maybe will wear them for a little while and see how that foam does over 6 months, because when they're new, the playability of them is just, like I said, it's just out of this world in terms of just how gliding they feel on the court. And for someone's playing pickleball, yeah, in a short court situation, they're sure-footed enough to play in those, short court situations, especially if you got a fence right beside you and you got to come to a stop. Like I said, you can lay down traction, but they're light enough and airy enough that they're comfortable for playing, like I said, on really hard surfaces, and just kind of doing those really short court, kind of quick pivoting motions. And those things that can really start to irritate joints in your foot, these ones, like I said, just are so forgiving in that aspect that even though you can get a lot of ground feel on them, it doesn't feel like you're just pummeling into the ground, right, when you're trying to kind of split step and kind of make those, like I said, really short court movements. And like I said, when you're playing pretty advanced pickleball, it can get to the point where you are just jostling your foot in so many different directions so quickly, same in high-level doubles. That can be what really causes a lot of pain, because 1 second you're going one direction, the next second you're going the other, then you're going forward, then you're going backward. Is in tennis, a lot of times, like I said, you have time to dissipate that shock over a longer period of time and over a longer surface area and then go their direction. Whereas in pickleball, a lot of times, especially as it gets faster and faster, you don't have that time. And like I said, this solution is very interesting, and I'm really interested to see how this does long term, because short term, it's out of this world. So love to hear your thoughts on these in the comments down below. And if you're picking them up, if you're going to pick them up for pickleball or tennis, let me know in the comments. And like I said, this second channel I've been doing, and like I said, make sure you subscribe to the Foot Doctor Zach Dubs channel, where I'm going to be doing a lot more of these deeper dives into these more tennis and pickleball specific products, kind of getting really into the weeds on them. But also make sure you keep it on the Foot Doctor Zach channel for all the new major releases in the tennis space as well. And if you do want to see another one of the more recent and pleasantly surprising tennis models I've just reviewed, the Adidas Soul Match Control 2 Go Under the Knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.